Well, I'm just going to put on recording. So recording's happening. So welcome, Mads, and fabulous Wall. And you don't look sick. You look beautifully healthy and in the spirit of life. Can you hear me okay? Am I coming across happily? Good. Wow, fabulous. It's good to see you again.
You.
In the flesh and stuff. No, really, really good. I'm really excited to see you. Actually, the last time we actually spoke was the last day of Supercoach Academy, probably. No, rather the last time we met, or we were face-to-face one. It was last day of Supercoach Academy, which was kind of fun. And we kind of connected there and thought, actually, maybe there's some dots to join. And actually, probably there's still some dots to join, in actual fact. But I know we've been together once or twice before talking about all sorts of things we can do, but I know that will come too. So thank you for coming. And you've been on world travels and all sorts.
Yeah, true. I've just spent 7 weeks in California with the family. So
7 weeks.
7 weeks off. Yes,
yeah.
Me and my wife and our two beautiful sons, 5 and 8. So we just traveled around, saw the cities, drove ourselves, and just hang out in whatever the day brought. So that was just amazing.
Yeah, it's a very pleasant place to hang out. Actually, I used to work in the Bay Area. Actually, a little bit of work out there, and likewise, then eventually took my family out as well for maybe a couple of weeks or so. It's just the most amazing place. Love it. Santa Monica and not Santa Monica. Actually, we based ourselves in just south of San Francisco, on the bottom of the bay, and we went as far south as beyond Monterey, and then up to I want to say Muir Woods, and also some of the wine region as well, but just wonderful.
Yeah, I was actually surprised because I've done a lot of work in Los Angeles and San Francisco. But this time we got into LA and we drove down. We kind of wanted to see Mexico, but we didn't plan that. But going to San Diego, we felt like getting a Mexican vibe, like with all the Spanish talking people and the signs and all. And then we drove to Las Vegas because when we were there, it's the closest we've ever been. And it just took us by surprise how fun and invigorating Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But what surprised me the most was the drive from Las Vegas and up to San Jose, where we stayed for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew how absolutely beautiful California is.
Yeah.
And going through the mountains, the valleys, the green areas, the trees, the grass, and then the fields of it's nuts and almonds and all kind of things. It was just the most beautiful trip, and I enjoyed it. My kids, they hated it because they just wanted to get there, but I really enjoyed it.
What was the best part of the trip, son? Well, the video. Enjoyed watching the videos. Yeah. Wow, good. I'm pleased you're doing well. You clearly are doing very, very well. And so thank you for coming and doing this, whatever this is.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of curious myself on whatever this is, but people seem to show up and share their stuff, share their why, which is good. So maybe, I don't know, do you have a why you want to share?
Yeah, because one of the things that actually got clear to me maybe only half a year ago was, so I've done corporate training and leadership development for plus 10 years. And that's been fun. And I've done positive psychology, I've done neuro leadership, and I've done all kinds of things. Just for the sake that I love working with people and see them grow and see the click in people. But half a year ago, I started wondering, what is it that I'm ultimately aiming for? Why this work? Because I saw a shift in the way I got clients and the way I approached them. And I also realized that there's actually some clients that I'm not really clear on it, but I kind of not select them. Like I'm kind of standoffish to them, like not really into it. And I got curious about what it was, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, and it's the clear wording came during those 7 weeks, but I really want to support sustainable change in the world, to a place where we thrive more, we contribute more with us, and we perform at a better level, both in life and leadership. And I saw that when I can connect with my clients with an intent to do better, both performing like do better in making money, do better in making employees contribute with the very best, do better, but also in the sense of, do we have responsible partnerships? Do we contribute with a real value in what we do? And something happens with the clients when we connect around the intent to do better.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, that's my go-to place each time I'm considering decision making or being insecure about stuff or have a lot of thinking at. Is this contributing to sustainable change? I'm so amazed with the work that Mara and Eirik is doing, and seeing that conversation about one solution. And I had an epiphany during the 3PGC conference last year in LA, where I saw somewhat a calling saying, I see what they're up to in the world.
Yeah.
And if I in any way could and would support that, it would be with the leadership power of enabling that vision of one solution. So that's kind of, it's been a half a year of just getting clear on what it is. And now it is to support the sustainable change with better leaders.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pleased you see that. It's I must admit, it was a little bit of a journey for me as well. I'm going to just switch the view here. It was a bit of a journey for me too. And that sudden realization that it's not just about the person that's in front of you. There's a whole world out there, and the opportunities of being able to help the planet, and then talking to people that maybe have a bit more of a wider circle, that, the more that, I coach somebody or I help somebody with something or help them see something different, there's an opportunity for that person to take that somewhere else, and expand on that. And I just want to be able to, like you, to be able to, spread that in such a way that it will change the world. It's bound to change the world. And why not now? Why not now?
Yeah, and it's, for me, it has given me a different place to have the conversation with potential clients. That I have a feeling of, what is this about? Because I can see myself previously and still to some extent feeling invited to the room of, can you just improve our performance? I mean, it's fine that you want to have a better world, but can you just make us perform in a better way? But I can see when it's a conversation about what change can we actually support. And when I talk about how leaders can actually be part of change in the team, a change in the individuals that reports to them, and see that change, see that community change, see those things. That's been really inspiring to me, and it's helped me recalibrate my focus.
Yeah. I love that. That's a big echo for that with me. With suddenly seeing the opportunity that it could be the whole of the planet that we could be helping here, rather than just the person in front of us. Really, really good. Cool. So is that why it's clearly different for you?
Yeah.
There's a different why, and that movement from whatever it was previously to kind of what it is now. I'm guessing, have you noticed the way that you show up differently, or do you see that you show up differently because of that, or what's your thing now?
Yeah, for sure. And I can see it as the principle is that you see something and it affects you, and when it affects you, you see something new which affects you, and it's that process where it touches upon each other, and it's these vibrations, and it's been, the funny thing is, it feels like a big shift, but when I look in retrospect, I can see it's a part of 100 small shifts. So it just feels big, but I can go back and I can see a conversation with George Pransky where we talked about mental velocity, where he talked about me being positive, engaged, enthusiastic kind of person, which is my personality. But when I wasn't paying attention, it became my enthusiasm to grow the conversations instead of my curiosity and my ability to connect. And that was a small shift towards this, because I became more aware of my inner pace of things and how that affected what people saw when I pointed. So that was a small shift. It was a huge shift, but in this grand scheme of things, it was a small shift. But that enabled me to listen more and feel more within in what I do. So I'm seeing all these small shifts that made it possible to see, oh, there's a greater vision. So it's, yeah, I totally feel the difference, and also the difference in how I show up. And it feels like almost before and after, but I can see that it's just a slow shift with small stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I'm curious with that. It's a kind of everlasting learning, the everlasting learning of this. And I was just sort of curious about what next with that. Is there a sense at all of still looking for something? Maybe not.
It doesn't feel like a still looking, but a continuously curiosity to see what appears, like what's the next inclination, or what makes sense, or what's the next flavor. So it doesn't feel like searching for new things, but just being aware. And sometimes then I have a conversation with one of my clients, and I get aware of a place where I see them change, and I see the ripple effect of their change, which inspires me. And I get curious about, oh, do I have that ripple effect, or is there areas where I'm holding back, or where I'm in my concepts of things? And I can see that. I mean, one of the funny areas right now is that I'm getting much more clear on my why. And my assistant, we talk about all sorts of things. And the other day we talked about social media marketing. And with social media marketing, there's all these rules about what to do and what not to do, and how do you do that properly, and the kind of content and the frequency and all these things. And we've been listening to some of those experts. And this fall, we spent a huge amount of money in our budget on stuff that I felt from the very first day, it doesn't feel right, but he's telling me it's right. So I'm doing it against my feeling of not being right. And the funny thing is, when it didn't work, I was only annoyed with him for 5 minutes, because then I was annoyed with myself for 5 hours, because I'm like, man, you knew. And I'm seeing these areas where I get up against, but an expert says. So the other day we saw this video with a guy saying, all this social media stuff, don't use all those marketing tactics. Be authentic. And after watching that video, he wants to sell a coaching program where he tells how to be authentic. And I was just laughing, because I was drawn into, the authentic. And then right after, he wanted to sell me a solution. So it's just funny to seeing how quickly we get caught up in what seems relevant and right. And so that's where I hang out, curiously seeing what's up with things.
Yeah, there is an irony about that, isn't there? I spot that too, with somehow the authenticity of people, and then the overcomplication of bringing something else that you need to do into that. That's brilliant, and I'm pleased you bring up the social media stuff. So, I actually, how do you get you out there? How does that, you showing up in a different way, how does that now hit the world? What's the mode of?
Well,
Mads?
the funny thing is that I've been working with supporting and training corporate clients for 17 years, and the last 10 as a consultant. So I have a lot of clients. So the funny thing is, I actually don't have to do marketing because it's word of mouth, and I get people that calls me and could you do this and could you do that, and some of the things is relevant and some of the things are not relevant. But the funny thing is, one of the things that I realized this vacation is that I have spent my time and money on traditional marketing of a service. And I realized that if you asked my clients, they wouldn't be able to tell you what my why is. And even if you told them what my why is, they would probably recognize it to some extent, but it would be a feeling of, oh, I can see that he's that type of guy. I realized that I don't tell the world what I'm up to. I'm still just telling them how I can create clarity, how I can help them connect, how I can help them prioritize, how I can help them perform. So I've become painfully aware that I'm only communicating in the message, which is actually not where I want to have the conversation, but that's all I put out. So one of the things that we talked about in my business is that I want to create content, but I also see why I haven't created more content, because I wasn't clear about what my content really was. I was clear on what my offer to the world is, but what is the message? And I can feel that that message sharpens now, which makes perfect sense. And I feel ready to put out that content. So business-wise, I get my clients on referrals, but on a communicating platform, I want to share what I'm up to.
Yeah. I'm about to ask what you mean by, specifically what you mean by content. What would you class as content?
It could be blog posts, it could be videos, it could be whatever, but just sharing from a place. And I've started doing that after my vacation, where the funny thing is, one day I had this keynote for, it was two keynotes for the same client, one east and one west of Denmark. And after the first one, we talked about resilience. And the funny thing is, it's a company that supports coaches and consultants and therapists and all with this psychological profile tool. And they did this whole morning on resilience. Resilience comes from being brought up by the right family. Resilience is about how you as an organization understand how to make them resilient. And I asked the CEO saying, so you are aware that I'm going to tell them that all they heard this morning is bollocks and that they are resilient from birth. And he said, I know that, but I want to give that as a perspective too. That's great. So after that, the first keynote, the first day, I made a small video where I thanked and appreciated the consulting company for being brave enough to actually welcome a message, a paradigm that's not aligned with what they do. And then I gave my 2 cents in a 5 minutes video on resilience, saying that we have all the resilience that we need. It's just that we get lost from it. And that felt so honest, that the message felt honest about where I come from, and then that we have innate resilience. And because it came from that place, or I suppose, I imagine it's because it's just me showing up with what I saw that day. 5 consultants from that company shared the video on Facebook. And in the matter of 4 days, it was viewed more than 3,000 times. It wasn't planned. It wasn't a content strategy. There was nothing to it. It's me in the car, 5 minutes, thanking them for being brave and me sharing what I saw on resilience. And the next I knew, more than 3,000 people saw that video on my take on bravery and resilience. So that's kind of an example about on content. And for me, it's why-oriented content.
Yeah. Yes, because it's felt from somewhere else, isn't it? Yeah. You know what I mean from that? You know, you were talking earlier about the genuineness of this, and the wisdom that speaks to you kind of in the moment, that just says, that guides you automatically with your genuineness and the honesty of kind of where that comes from and why that makes, perfect sense, and why people connect with it,
Mm.
and why people connect with it.
And the very fact that in that video, it wasn't about being a resilient leader or creating a resilient organization. It was just, oh, so what if we all realized that resilience isn't something to understand or learn or develop? It's already there. So that means that if that's true, if we're all innately resilient, we all have it. Our kids have it. We have it. Our mental ill aunt has it. So if that's the case, and that's when I re-saw the video, it's like, oh, it was different talking about resilience on a global scale instead of a value proposition for a company. That was kind of why it felt differently to me.
Yeah, there's something quite spine tingling about resilience on an earthly scale or a planetary scale, isn't there?
Mm.
That's an exciting place to be.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that everyone has resilience built in, knowing that everyone has mental health built in. Yeah, it's the interesting thing is I kind of, this is just occurring to me, so I need to frame this, but kind of it needs to kind of flow a little bit. But I'm curious with, I kind of feel like a little bit of a global movement that's working somehow, everyone working in the same direction, everyone just beautifully heading in the same direction, but almost in isolation. Does that make sense? There is it's like a magnetic pull almost. You actually know you're north. This is the way we're heading. We're all heading in this direction. And it's interesting when a client gets it too and sees their wisdom and their resilience and their well-being and their everything, and how simple this is, they get that sense of true north too. And they take it with them too, with everyone that they connect with too. But you still feel, this is just me talking now, and I'm just getting this, but I still feel like an individual doing this. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was just coming to me.
It actually speaks to an experience that I have myself, that it's actually funny. Like 2 hours ago, I talked to my assistant. We have a client where it's a leadership group, and one of the leaders is coaching, and for several reasons, it doesn't feel right that I'm going to be the coach for her. So we talked about, okay, so who can we refer her to? I mean, what would be a good fit? So we start thinking about that fit. And the funny thing is, when you say that, it becomes clear to me that I'm feeling my work, and I'm feeling the north, and I know that we are all pointing towards the same north, because that's the gift of the principles, is that we all point to the same very fact of the human experience. But we do it with various voices and examples and all kind of things. So we have our thing articulating and pointing to the principles. And I can see how I select collaborators, and I feel connected to you in the way you and I have the conversation. Mm-hmm. So I mentioned several names where I'm like, no, I wouldn't work with her or him, because that's a different take, which is kind of crazy because we point toward the same. Yeah. But I think we create the isolation. I know that I create the isolation because I have defined a right and wrong way to work with the principles in the context of my clients. I respect that we all do it differently, but I can feel that I have created a concept of right and wrong with my clients, which is, it's subconsciously selecting who's right and who's not.
Fab.
Well, it doesn't sound fabulous, but it is true.
It is. Well, it is. Yeah, we do that. We do that. And I must admit, I get those thoughts too about who do I work with and who do I not. One of the things that popped up as you were talking was a really great example of kind of how we are pointing in the same direction, but we are doing it in isolation. But it kind of doesn't matter. There's a great example where John L. Mockadam and I, we had a bit of a client bash, maybe the wrong word, but just an introduction. Just say hi. This is us. And this is what we're up to. And we barely had 2 minutes conversation about what we were going to talk about. And we rolled up, we jocked up, and there was one guy in the UK. There was an Indian company, so there was 3 other people online in 3 different cities around in India. And we had this great conversation, and I said, look, here's something about this. John and I haven't actually spoken about what we're going to talk about today. We have not prepared anything for today, but I know whatever he's going to say and wherever he's going to go, it'll be pointing in exactly the same direction as I will. And there's an ease with me about whatever he's going to say, because I know it'll come from a place that I come from too. And so do you, and so do you, and you, and you. And you'll connect with it. And that in of itself, that not worrying about where it's going to go because you know, someone to my left here is going to go and take it in a direction that I have no idea, but I know it's going to be exciting and fun, and we'll find something out. Is invigorating, and they suddenly saw something really valuable in us just showing up and just going from where we were. And it was a beautiful, beautiful meeting where one of the guys, actually the guy in the UK, got a sudden movement, a sudden understanding that everything that he was worried about previous to the meeting had just vanished. And he was virtually in tears. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience to be part of. But a nice little sort of segue, just a little thing that I remember picking up back in some of the early days. Yeah. Interesting. Neat. Cool. Is there a, I know that you've got, I'd like a bit of a perspective on this. Now I do meet a lot of principles practitioners that have moved from their previous, if I can say, a modality, you know, a place where they used to practice a thing that they used to do. And there's a sense of, you know, sort of bringing your clients, well, this is from my perspective and not maybe from yours, I'd just like you from your take, bringing your business from what it was into what it is now, into the principles, into practicing principles with people. And I'm a bit curious about how, or yeah, actually the how that move sort of manifested, not in the mechanics of it, but how your clients came from one particular modality to this, to the principles, and you were able to do that. Now, do you see that, this is the question, do you see that as having a business or a practice beforehand, and then moving from that into the principles, or people being sort of freshly taught the principles or freshly understanding the principles and then starting a practice? Because what I would like to do is to help people recognize how I guess, the simplicity of this and the simplicity of building a practice from nothing. What was your experience of actually going from the setup that you had to the setup as it is now? Did people actually move, or was it a start from scratch, or what was it? How did it manifest for you, and how can we help people that are just sort of starting out on this journey move from the understanding to being out there and sharing?
So a couple of shots on this. The first one is actually just a fun story about how insanely difficult we can do it to ourselves. So this is to the transitioning from having a consulting company. When I met the principals the first time, it was 2013. No, that's not true. Actually, it's 2012, and I meet with one of my coaching friends in Denmark, a really cool guy, and we met up once a quarter just to discuss clients and coaching, and he's this brutal guy. One of his takes was brutal honesty. So he would just scare the shit out of his clients by being honest. And he always said to me, "Oh, you're this kind, polite corporate soldier. You kind of nudge them and you kind of stroke them by the hair, and you're the sweet guy. You should be more brutal." And I was like, it doesn't really make sense to choose being brutal just to get the honesty across. But I respected him and his work. So he talked about the difference between horizontal coaching and vertical coaching. Instead of just helping people slightly improve their life or experience of life and seeing transformation. So he gave me the book of Michael Neal's Supercoach. So I read the Supercoach like, oh yeah, that is awesome. Like going at the root cause instead of just what they experience. And then I started following Michael, and I went to his Thrive retreat. I was so taken by Michael and his message and his work and his persona and all. So I was ready to sign up for the apprenticeship, like the ridiculously expensive apprenticeship. And my wife said to me, "Isn't there a starter package you could start with before you just throw 75 G's?" So I took to Italy to his Thrive retreat, and the first 2 days I got nothing. I was taken by the atmosphere and the connection in the group. I mean, I was with Martin Jernland, and I was with Kim Blackmore from the UK, and we had this amazing group. And I was taken by how sweet they were, the connection, the atmosphere in the room, how relaxed everything was. But I didn't realize that was part of the experience. I was just like, oh, I like this. But what Michael talks about, it doesn't make any sense. So going out of the Friday, I was really frustrated. And I was so thankful to my wife that I didn't pay $75,000 for a good feeling. So I went to bed rather frustrated. And that night, I kind of let go, like, oh, okay, I wasted these 6,000 or whatever. And I'm just going to hang out and have fun because I like the people, I like the place, and I like the food. So, okay, I didn't find the silver bullet. That's fine. And that Saturday, I got more insight to the human nature than my whole life up until that day. I saw psychological archetypes just being thought-created. Both the idea of psychological profiles, the tool itself, and the processes that we built around psychological profiles. And that was 80% of my business at home. I had a consulting company with a partner, and I just saw my whole company dissolve, like right there. I remember Michael doing like this. So this is like a personality, but it's just me making it up. So it can take whatever shape you want it to. It's just me. And I just saw, that's a problem. If we just make things up, I don't have a business. And I was so taken by it. So that evening I called my wife saying, I'm out of business. I mean, I'm going to fire them all. I'm going to close the business and I'm going to start over. And again, my wife, she's very clever. So she said, that sounds fine, dear. Could we wait to make this decision until you come home?
Yeah.
And I said, we can do that. And so we did. And it started a journey where I signed up for the Super Coach Academy. And to your question about the transformation, transitioning the company from one perspective to another, meeting the principles at first, it was my first spiritual experience ever. I mean, it was truly transformational, and it was spiritual. I felt in touch with the universe for the very first time in my life that Saturday evening, after seeing these things, just seeing how everything is connected. And from that on, to be honest, I felt a little bit enlightened, and I actually felt I was more enlightened than my business partner and my company, because obviously they didn't have this experience. So for them, I just brought home a new theory or a new paradigm or a new tool.
Yeah.
And I obviously I couldn't make them have that experience, but I wasn't even aware of the fact that I couldn't give them that. So what I saw was just them trying to get something, and each time they tried to get it, I just judged them for not being spiritual enough. Not spiritual in just that sense, but just having the feeling of how profound that was, because they were just, oh yeah, makes sense. Thought creates feeling, we get that. Consciousness, okay. Yeah, okay. The universal resource, okay, I get that too. But I could see them in their eyes, they didn't get it.
Yeah.
They listened and they were paying attention, but they didn't really get it. So it started a journey for me where I was just, okay, so the principles is for me, and I can include it in my work, but our company is going to do what we used to do in order to make money. So I saw that it didn't work. I didn't believe it. It didn't make sense. But it did make sense to make money to serve the clients so that I could pay for Super Coach Academy and that journey. And I signed up for the how to build a successful principle-based practice kind of thing with Barb and George and Michael. And with that, I had a coaching session with George. I still remember it. And we talk about these things and my journey and the profoundness and all that. And I told him that I wouldn't transition the company because they didn't get it, and I wasn't sure that the clients would get it. And then he said the following. He said, Thomas, you have seen something really profound. Yeah. And it has changed your life. Yes. And it has fundamentally changed your performance, your level of clarity, your level of love, your level of impact. Yeah. Okay. But you still don't believe that your co-workers have the capacity to have that insight and see that. I could just feel how he squeezed me.
and this other guy was brutal, apparently.
and then he took it a notch further, because he said to me, okay, I get that.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from. And what you're also saying is that you're not sure that the clients would get it, so you need to do the old stuff to make money. Yeah. He said, so the profound shift in you and your level of clarity and feeling and performance, you don't think clients would pay for that. And I just felt like a freaking moron. I mean, I was just so confronted with the very fact that I didn't see how important this was and how much of value it would be to anyone. So the shift started there, and I saw that, of course. So we started it as a process in the company. We started having conversation about the principles. They started reading Michael's book. We sent our consultants to Aaron and Mara event in the UK. We hired Barb as a coach for the company, so that we have those conversations, not driven by me, but by Barb. And we transformed. So, and to be specific to whomever watching this video, that makes sense for us was, instead of us trying to sell the principles, one of the decisions we made one of the insights we had was that what if we just respected the client's perception of a given problem? So we have problem sales.
Can you say that again, because it went a bit fuzzy then?
Okay, yeah. So one of the insights, the decision we had was, what if we accept the perception of the client, so that we have a sales problem, or we have a service problem, or we have a delegation problem, we have a time problem. Instead of us selling the principles and the understanding of the principles, we accepted the perception of the client and what they believe to be the problem. We then pointed to what created that problem. We talked about how Croft creates our experience. But in the beginning, we were very gentle, not trying to force upon the principles, but just saying, yes, we can solve that. And kind of behind the scenes, we started pointing. And today, it's obvious to me that it was because we weren't comfortable making that conversation clear. So we kind of sneaked it in the back door. And I'm not saying that's the right way to do things. It just, that made sense to us in the beginning, that it's, okay, we accept the formulation of the problem. We just have a different take on solving the problem now than we would have with positive psychology or psychological archetypes and all. But what also happened was that as clarity rose in the company, it became much more aware of, we saw how to drive business differently. So we started by being 7 people, and actually we split in different steps, and now we're all independently driving our businesses. We still talk to each other. We still have conversations about how to approach clients and how to help and serve, but we're all doing it as one-man businesses. Goes back to your point to the same north, but in isolation. So we had to, in our case, in my case, I had to find me in this process and the way it makes sense to me. And at that point, it didn't make sense for us to do it together. So first we were 3 partners and some consultants. Then we split with one of the consultants and he went solo. Then last year in January 16, we split. So me and my business partner went solo each. So that's been kind of the process for me. And I can see now that one of the things that's really stuck with me, and one of the things that I talk to clients is and it's something I heard Sid say a year ago on a video. Obviously, he didn't say it a year ago. I heard it a year ago. He said, don't look at what's created, but what's creating. And I took that so much to I've listened to Sid before and I didn't get him. I mean, he was just too weird to me. Honestly, I could hear George, I could hear Michael, I could hear Mara, I could hear Aaron. Whenever I sat down and listened to Sid, it was just weird to me. Yeah. But last time I went to see George and Linda in La Connor, one morning, I just an inclination, I sat down and I put on a DVD with Sid, and it was just literally, maybe comes to me now, maybe only the second real spiritual experience I've had. Listening to him where he said, it's not what's created, it's what's creating. And I saw, I get dragged into the business context of my clients. I get into how can we fix the created? How can we see that differently? How can we understand that it's called created? But all of a sudden I saw, if we take a step back and take the universal key of understanding ultimately what's creating at all times, it just shifted. So for me, again, lots of small steps in transitioning. And I've had the question recently, would you rather come clear from no background and do a principle-based practice instead of having this transition? And I said, you know what? I think we're just designed to make it difficult for ourselves. So if we come from a clean background, we would just have all kinds of stories about how to build a business, how to get clients, how difficult it is to have a spiritual conversation with business leaders. So I think instantly we make it difficult no matter where we come from.
Very well put. Yeah, very well put. I can resonate with that entirely. for everyone out there, my background is completely clean. In that, what I learned was, I don't know, maybe a year of where Michael was with NLP and stuff, and then he kind of segued into principles. And so all I have is maybe a year's worth of whatever NLP stuff he was on with at the moment. And I didn't have a practice at all. I was working as a project and program manager in a company called Ericsson. And what did I know about that? And I must admit, whenever I get thinking about, my God, it's difficult to get clients, I've got some stuff on it. That's why. That's why. But the interesting thing is, and where I was, and you did mention it a little bit about kind of the spiritual place and also the where it's coming from. There's a link really into me. I see. The interesting thing is, I get clients whenever I meet them, and so referrals don't work that well until I actually meet the person. And then somehow they are somehow drawn to something that I'm creating, I guess. And clients more often than not just show up because they see something different. And that kind of speaks to that sense of the creation. And there's a piece of just being and being genuine, from that. And that I've noticed recently over the last, let's say, 3 or 4 months, really kind of that sense of being. In actual fact, I picked it up off of one of these conversations with somebody. And, people saying it's about being, it's about being, it's about being. And it's suddenly dropped into my psyche about what that being actually might be. Yeah, cool. So you mentioned a lot of your clients are corporates, and you mentioned a little bit of the how. And I must admit, I kind of caught a little bit of that in terms of where I've been to, in terms of kind of looking at the activity that they're up to, and not actually talking about the principles in any sense, just saying, yeah, we can solve that. Is there a how from there? Okay, so you get engaged with a client. Is there a how from there? What's the how? If you move out of the why and into the how, the how, can you quantify in some sense a how for us?
It has also developed over the last 6-8 months. Before, it would be in any situation where humans are curious to do better, like feel better, do better. That would be okay, so I'm just helping humans, to get an understanding of what's going on and why is everything working for me, not against me, as it can feel sometimes. And I've had conversation with friends and a mastermind group, and we talk about that thing of should we choose a specific area where we do our business, and we don't have to, and if it doesn't make sense, don't. But it makes sense for me to focus my attention to leaders. So I want to support sustainable change in the world and make sure that we thrive and feel fulfilled and contribute with the very best of us. And if I should, with my little effort, support a better world, I'm drawn to improve the quality of leadership, because I can see how much leadership affects. I can see that one CEO, he affects 10, 15, 20, 30,000 people and he makes decisions on a daily basis that influences all those lives, some to a big degree and some to a small degree. But if he doesn't understand state of mind, if he doesn't understand where his experience is coming from, he risks making poorly decisions that's going to affect thousands of lives out of the misunderstanding about why he's feeling the way he's feeling.
Yeah.
And I could work with whomever. I mean, sometimes I take on small projects with a golf player or a talent of some kind, or a musician, or whomever. But my how is, I feel strongly connected to improving the world by making sure that we have leaders with an understanding of the human mind, and that could actually change countries, that could change wars, that could change the economy, it could change the environment. That's kind of my how is, I really want to make sure that leaders in any organization truly sees what a significant and important impact they have on the planet, eventually on the planet, because they have the employee that goes home to the family and becomes an active citizen in the community or not, raising sustainable aware kids or not, making sure that we meet the neighbor or not, making sure that we can welcome refugees or not.
Yeah.
So all that. So that's kind of my how. I feel so inspired to make sure that on a global scale we see what leadership can do, not only for the business, not only for the money, not only for the growth, but for the thing that we're here together.
Yep. That's neat.
It feels neat.
Say again?
It feels neat.
It does. Yeah, it is. And once you're in that place and you suddenly realize that's just more useful, it just sort of takes you there, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of giving a keynote last week to 80 leaders of a Scandinavian, a Nordic corporation with 5,000 people. And I was given an hour to talk about improving quality. And the funny thing is, I heard the CIO, the Chief Information Officer, talk about what they lacked. And she was frustrated at the very fact that they give themselves a score of 67 on an engagement scale of 100%. They had a 67 engagement score. She was frustrated about that. She was missing bravery, ownership, ambition, engagement, and one more. Doesn't matter. And we talked about how they, as a Nordic leadership group, looked for the why of why is the engagement score only 67. And one leader stood up and saying, it's because of the shareholder program that some leaders get a lot of shares and some doesn't. It's because of the idea of the introduction to the stock market. It's because of the rapid change in strategy. It's blah, 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 blah. And I chose only to have the conversation about, so what your employee is experiencing is only what they create, but so do you. So when you look at your employees as ungrateful or as stuck to the future, stuck to the past, or whatever it is, you are all only up against that. The disturbing thing is that you all react to a low mood. You're all reacting in your frustration. So your employees, they are not doing anything else than slapping you over the wrist with an engagement score, because they know that it doesn't matter. They know that they can give you a 5 on a 10 scale. It doesn't measure their engagement. It doesn't measure the hour before the measurement or the hour after how engaged they were. It doesn't measure how invested they are in the programs and the products. It doesn't show how engaged they are in your future. It just said in that second where they gave a score, they were reacting to whatever truth they're building in their thought system. So what you see is just a compiled score on the thought. In that very second, everybody pushed the engagement score. But now, you're experiencing a thought storm trying to make sense of this. And you risk doing all kind of crazy initiatives, either forcing them to step into the future or reminding them of the risk or all kind of things, and you're just going to create more thought. The very moment where you stop and be aware of what's going on in you and being honestly, authentically curious about what's going on in them, that's where the change comes. That's where your productivity change. That's where your engagement change. That's where people will see, oh, we can do this differently together.
Yeah.
And it was such an uplifting experience, because you could feel that the majority of the room saw, oh, we are up against something way different than a low engagement score.
Yeah. Neat. Yeah, I love the way that came over, actually. You're trying to sort out an illusion. In fact, you're trying to sort out an illusion of somebody else with an illusion that you've got too.
And you wonder why.
Good luck with that. Oh, it's been wonderful talking to you, Mads. I could go on forever with you, with talking to you. But tell you what, what would be a great place for people to contact you at? Where would they come?
That would be madsqwist.com, and Qwist is QW, so madsqwist.com. That's the English version. They also have a Danish version, but I'm suspecting that people will find that very difficult. So
we might. So it's just go there for the email address as well. I'm sure it's
yeah. And there is an ebook there where I've collected some of the thoughts from one of the projects that we've done, and some videos and things to other inspiration material.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, thank you again for coming along and sharing this. We've been now for, I think, nearly an hour, if not slightly more, in fact, just about the hour. So thank you again. It's been wonderful. I hope people enjoy this. If you do enjoy this, please share amongst your community and elsewhere. We'd love you to share it. That'll be fantastic. Or whatever you feel like you need to do. So thank you so much again, Mads. And hope to be chatting to you again really, really soon.
We will.
Okay. Cheerio.
Cheerio.
Bye.